All right, John, and our special guest, Steve Bowling. Do you know the Dreamcast is thinking? It's always thinking. It's always there. It's still thinking, even though Sega's not made a new console in forever. Yes, welcome to the top 10 games for the Sega Dreamcast, as voted by all of you. John, Steve, how are you both doing?
We couldn't be better. We're talking about the Dreamcast. How do you top this?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite consoles of all time. Like, I had to be here for this one. The Dreamcast is probably the reason that I'm even doing what I'm doing today. So I'm super excited to talk about this.
And John, you made a whole video about
Yeah, I mean,
the
this
Dreamcast.
was pretty much my first console.
Oh
My
wow!
family had a Game Boy, and then my sisters got a Dreamcast. I think it was for Christmas, but neither of them were that interested in it, so I just kind of took it. And I think we started off with Sonic Adventure, Super Magnetic Neo, and Pen
Hmm.
Pen, which is like a penguin racer. Um,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, it was only on the market in the West for like a year and a half, but I stayed on the used game market for years, just playing like chunks of the library.
Mhm.
It's one of my favorites.
I know we'll leave Steve for last because I know he probably has one of the more in-depth Dreamcast experiences. But for me, I never picked up a Dreamcast. I'd always see it like years later. Like, should I pick one up? But then I gotta get the game, collect the games, find the games. Like, I just never put in the effort. But I distinctly remember its launch because it was 99.99,
Hmm.
and I had been burned hard by the Sega Saturn, so I had become a PlayStation kid by that point. And I distinctly remember saying, because it was the same release day as Final Fantasy VIII. It's like, oh, Final Fantasy VIII will outsell the Dreamcast. Who cares about the Dreamcast? It's going to be just another junk console. And then looking over when I was picking up Final Fantasy VIII at EB Games, and they had a demo unit set up for Soul Calibur, I'm like, oh hell, that looks good.
Yeah, I mean, even as a kid, I had a friend with a PlayStation, and I remember going to his house to play Tekken 3, and I was like, "What is this? This doesn't look anywhere near as good as Soul Calibur." The jump between systems was so vast. It's probably one of the biggest jumps we've ever had. Like going from those sort of unrefined polygonal look to basically refined PlayStation 2 style visuals, which still look great today.
It holds up really well.
Yeah.
How'd you find yourself with the Dreamcast, Steve? Before we get into it.
So I got my Dreamcast a little before 99.99 because I was 16 at this age. I was already importing consoles, and the Dreamcast was the second console I ever imported. I got the N64 first, and the Dreamcast second. And I'll never forget because my birthday was around the corner at the time, and so I was on eBay looking at Dreamcasts because that's what I wanted. And my mom walked up to me. This was back in the 90s when most people had like a family computer that everyone shared. And so my mom's like, well, I'll give you a choice. You can either go to prom with your girlfriend or you can get a Dreamcast. One of those is going to be your birthday
Easy
present, but not
choice.
both. Well, well, believe it or not, I actually said prom. I was like,
Oh,
I'll go to prom so that my
Wow.
girlfriend doesn't get mad at me. And I remember my mom letting out the biggest sigh and being like, damn it. And she was like, you chose correctly. I'll give you both. And she bought me the Dreamcast. And
Oh
so
wow.
she thought I was definitely just going to be like Dreamcast and forget about my girlfriend. So when I said prom, she was like, "Oh man," and she ended up
Damn it, I
reluctantly
have a
buying
good
me the
kid.
Dreamcast. Yeah, and she got it, and then my mom, and this is probably something she passed down to me. Like it arrived in like June, I want to say, of that year, and my birthday wasn't for another 2 months, and she was like, just take it. She just gave me she was so bitter about it, but she gave me a Dreamcast and a copy of Sonic Adventure, and I was in love. Like I
Mm.
obsessively played just this one game I had forever. Like I even used like Dream Passport to go online in
yeah.
my room. And it was just it was amazing. Like I ended up playing Sonic Adventure so much that I ended up placing pretty high in IGN's US launch tournament for the Dreamcast. Like, because it was the first level of Sonic Adventure, and I was like, I've played this a million times by now. I'm gonna do great.
Yeah, the online aspect
Wow.
is fascinating because growing up, I never got a chance to connect it online. We only had like one connection port, and it was down the stairs. And so, like, to connect that, you'd have to like take a giant wire and bring it all the way around the house. So we never put my consoles online until the wireless era. But I finally did it for Dreamcast Dream Pie video a while back. And I've played like Choo Choo Rocket online. I've done the Sonic Adventure DLC. It's just wild that a system could do that all the way back then. And then, of course, Phantasy Star Online is a huge part of that as well. But it was so far ahead of its time from a visual standpoint, from a technological standpoint. And then you got the VMU as well, which is just... It's so fun. Like, with Virtua Tennis, you can play the entire game on the VMU. Just look down and it's like a lo-fi tennis match. You look up and it's a hi-fi tennis match. It's so cool.
Yeah. It in retrospect, I was like, man, I kind of missed out, but I definitely couldn't get multiple consoles at the time. I wasn't quite liquid enough for that at that point. So I was still very much PlayStation all the way. It's weird to me to think that Final Fantasy VIII was when Dreamcast released. So the PS1 still had a few years left in it.
But you and plenty of other people would have still played some of the Dreamcast's library, like whether it's Sonic Adventure on the GameCube or Crazy Taxi on Skies of Arcadia, you know.
Yeah, fortunately, this was a time like soon after Sega went out of business, they ported a bunch. So there actually a lot of the games are available to play on other systems that were on the Dreamcast. But I still really wish they'd put out have a Dreamcast collection, a Dreamcast Mini, something like that. But it hasn't happened.
A Dreamcast Mini would be amazing. Like I've been hoping for that forever.
It's still got to make like the disc screeching noises though. Like just put a sound chip in the little console itself that just goes. We need that.
I remember the first time I heard it, was like, "Is your Dreamcast broke?"
That's just
like,
how
why
it
is it
sounds.
so? That's so weird.
One of my favorite things was when Nintendo released the Dreamcast theme for the 3DS, and it had that weird power-up hum that the Dreamcast makes.
Yeah.
Like every Dreamcast has like a little like to it when you turn it on, and that happens in the 3DS.
If your VMU has no battery in it, it does like a really loud beep. And that's when you open the system up on 3DS, it does that.
Yeah, because nobody's VMU had a battery in it.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, are you both ready to find out what our top 10 Dreamcast games of all time are as voted by our audience?
Hell yeah.
I'm very excited for this.
Just some quick stats before we jump right into it. We had a total of 409 votes this time around. Nice healthy number. I think that might be our third highest. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't check that one, but it covered 197 different games for the Dreamcast. So a pretty healthy amount. But what's really interesting to me for that one, though, is I was like, well, how'd that do compared to the Sega Saturn? The Sega Saturn only had 174 votes, but it covered 195 games.
Damn.
So almost as many games on the Saturn as the Dreamcast with less votes. So I'm not sure what that says about the systems. That's very shocking to me almost. I think everybody had that one Dreamcast game that they got really into. Or one Saturn game, I should say. But yeah.
Yeah. Saturn has like a really large breadth of games, especially when you're in the Japanese stuff. So I doubt many people would really be saying the same top 10. Whereas I think more Dreamcast users probably gravitate to a little bit more of the same stuff. Like you're going to see Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi, Sonic Adventure. Whereas Saturn, I don't think you can really say the same for.
Not as much, no.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, let's jump into it. Steve, John, what is the number 10 game of all time for the Dreamcast?
I would like this to be higher, but I don't have the faith that it will be. So I'm going to say House of the Dead 2.
Oh my God!
No
way!
Thinking the same thing?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
House of the Dead 2. Okay.
Yeah, I think it should be higher, but yeah, I also had it in my head as number 10. I pulled like a stack of games and I regretted not grabbing House of the Dead 2 because I'm like, that's definitely number 10. So
okay. At number 10, you are both incorrect.
Oh no! You
can't play with us like that.
I'm sorry about saying correct. Incorrect. What I wanted to say is that you're correct about there being a 2 in the title, because at number 10, with 510 points, Power Stone 2.
Oh, I thought that'd be way higher. Okay.
Power Stone 2. You know what though? I'm cool with that because I was going through my list, and Power Stone 2, and maybe this is blasphemy. It's not as good as Power Stone 1. Like not even close for me.
I've heard that a few times where Power Stone 2 isn't quite as I've never played them, so that's why I'm excited for the new collection coming out, so I could finally try these out. I think I've heard that Power Stone 1 is better, but Power Stone 2 has that party atmosphere.
Yes, that's precisely it. Power Stone 2 feels almost like Smash in a way.
Yeah.
Like, because it's 4-player chaotic stuff, like stage elements that can really mess with you. But it's such a stark contrast to Power Stone 1. Power Stone 1 almost feels like they wanted to make a more serious fighting game, and Power Stone 2 feels like they saw the success of Smash and wanted to take some of that.
Yeah. I do prefer Power Stone 2. I played this a lot with friends growing up, and the best thing about the Dreamcast is there's just 4 controller ports right on the system, no need for a multi-tap, and it is just such a fun, chaotic game. The Smash comparisons are really apt, because it's literally like a 3D Smash. You're going around, grabbing items, just smacking each other with them. There's rocket launchers, there's like melee weapons. Anyone who likes Smash would love Power Stone. And I really think any Smash fan should pick up the Capcom collection that's coming up, because you will adore it. You for sure will.
I never got the chance to play it myself, but I was at a PAX East, and they had in the common game rooms, they had a Dreamcast setup where people were playing Power Stone 2, and I was watching. I was like, this looks so much fun. And they were having a blast. They were just like laughing and just like, oh, look at this crazy thing, is like fighting on top of, I think, 2 planes riding next to each other. Like it was a spectacle. It's really cool. So yeah. I think that and the 4-player aspect is kind of what really pushed it to number 10, because you remember those really core multiplayer experiences.
Yeah. 2 players fun.
Yeah.
You can just smack each other. But when there's 4 of you, it's like, do you take time smacking somebody? Do you go and run for the weapon? Do you just try and take everyone out? There's a lot of strategy, even though it's just sort of like chaotic party game at its heart as well. But there's layers to Power Stone.
Mm-hmm.
There really are.
For sure. So I'm not too upset about that making number 10, but I wonder how you guys will feel about number 9. John, Steve, what is our number 9 Dreamcast game of all time?
I don't want to say House of the Dead again, so I'm going to leave that to the side for now.
Yeah.
I am going to say I would also like this one to be higher, but I think this one is spread out among different systems because it's a multi-platform game. And I don't know if everybody who played it would have voted for it on Dreamcast. So I'm going to say Rayman 2.
Oh, that's an interesting choice. I'm gonna. The Dreamcast was kind of a haven for 2D fighting fans in a similar way to how the Saturn was. So I'm gonna dig into that, and I'm gonna go for. I think I actually have it out here. Do I? I do. I'm gonna choose Marvel vs. Capcom. Like not 2, because 2 would be higher. So I'm gonna go with the OG Marvel vs. Capcom.
OG Marvel vs. Capcom. All right. Unfortunately, you're both incorrect.
Damn it.
Beating out Power Stone 2 by 57 points. Phantasy Star Online.
That's shocking.
No!
That is absolutely shocking. That is top 3.
Sacrilege.
material.
This is like, yeah. Oh, I'm so sad.
Yeah, that is crazy though. That is a system-defining game. I guess even no, there's no excuse. You can play this online back in the day. You can play it online now, but you can play it offline too. It's not strictly about online.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think if I had to guess now. Okay, so hold on, Derek. I have to ask this question: is this all versions, or is this version 1?
This is just version 1.
Version 1. Okay,
there were
there's
separate
still
votes
hope
for version 2. Yes.
There's still hope.
I don't know if there is hope.
I agree. I
can tell you right now.
I want PSO to chart higher, but yeah. This is version 1 is fantastic. It's my favorite version. I actually I would place this way higher, but I'm glad it's on the list anyway.
I mean, it's not only a system-defining game; it's a whole industry-defining game. Like this is like one of the first MMOs, the first console MMO. I don't know. This just feels historically too important to be number 9.
Let me down, Bluesky.
So I didn't have the best experience with Phantasy Star Online. I obviously didn't have a Dreamcast, but I think I rented or somehow was able to play Phantasy Star Online via the GameCube. But I didn't
yeah,
play it
yeah.
online because I didn't have online capabilities at that point. So I played only single player just to see what it was. And I'll be honest, I hated the combat system. Like figuring out the timing of hitting things and the fact that it just felt compared to the RPGs I was used to is like, this is boring. But I understand its significance. But where I'm coming from is like, it's such a stark difference for me trying Phantasy Star Online for the first time compared to playing Phantasy Star 4 for the first time and being like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, this is straight down my alley. Online never quite hooked me. Maybe if I went back to it and, now I'm older and have a better shot at it.
Think,
but yeah,
I do think there's an element to PSO of it being the first online console MMO like that, because if you were there in the moment that it happened, it's one of those, it's almost like a Mario 64 moment, right? Where you turn on your console and all these people are there, like real people that you're playing with, which obviously sounds trite today, but like in 2001, right? Like that was crazy to see, like just your Dreamcast dialing up to the internet and then suddenly tons of people that you can play with being available there. Especially if you didn't play PC games online before that. It was like a mind-blowing experience for me personally. I have like 1,500 hours in just this version of PSO. So for me, it was basically the game that defined the Dreamcast for me. Like it is far and away the game I've played most on the Dreamcast. I have lots of fond memories with this little game.
As soon as I saw this come in at number 9, I was like, oh, Steve's going to have some thoughts.
I'm not mad, internet. I'm just disappointed.
I'm happy it made the top 10 though, because it feels like it definitely deserves to be in the top 10 among Dreamcast games.
Yeah, it does. I'm happy it's in the top 10.
It gets to go on to the next round, and that's the important part.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and move on to number 8. Handily beating out Phantasy Star Online by a chunky 330 points. So it's a pretty significant jump up there.
It's quite unpredictable because there's still a lot of slots left, but a lot of games can occupy them. As Steve was touching on, there's a lot of fighters. Street Fighter 3, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Soul Calibur.
Capcom versus SNK?
Yeah. Because Phantasy Star Online was number 9, I think I'm going to go with Shenmue for number 8.
Ooh. Shenmue's an interesting choice. It's one that I would want to place higher. Oh god, yeah, you know what? I'm going to agree with you because my gut says Sonic Adventure 1, but I also think just because of the huge number of votes, the difference is 300 more votes. But I also feel like we're going to see Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 like in the top 3.
The top 2 for sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and for the sake of being different, for the sake of maybe making it a bit more interesting, I'm going to say Jet Set Radio.
Okay.
All right. At number 8 with 884 points, John was correct. Shenmue.
It's
well done.
Another very historically important game. Very, very impressive for its time. There's nothing else like Shenmue. Nothing looked like Shenmue. And I think those who love Majora's Mask would love Shenmue. That's sort of managing your time, doing what you want within a small town. Like it's early Yakuza. However, I think there's a vibe that Yakuza never quite emulated from Shenmue. It's it feels there's nothing quite like playing Shenmue. It is what it is. It's so interesting. However, it's aged in a way that I think some people may not be able to go back to. Like you move with the D-pad, just sort of selecting things can be a bit difficult. But when you look at what it was doing compared to everything else in that time, it was just far and away above everything else.
Yeah, it's really important to frame this because Shenmue existed in a pre-GTA 3 world.
Yeah.
And a lot of people see GTA 3 as definitional to what an open world game is these days, but Shenmue did a lot of what GTA 3 did, and in many cases even better, years prior. Like I was playing Shenmue in my parents' living room in 1999, and it is just wild to me. Like I still have like the this was on the list. I still have the Shenmue, like what's Shenmue disc.
Yeah.
And when you put that thing in and it has these like talking head segments with the character models, those character models even today
They
hold up
still look great.
extremely well.
They do.
Yeah,
They
like you
for sure do.
Mhm.
detail in Ryo's bandage on his cheek. Like I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
uh,
The GTA
you know,
comparison is interesting too, because like GTA is like it's an open world, but the world isn't necessarily what drives you. The world is just sort of a sandbox to drive around. Whereas in Shenmue, the world, you walk slower around it. Everything has importance. You're meant to interact with everything. It's a totally different kind of interaction to GTA, and in many ways, far more personal.
yeah, the camera's pulled in a lot tighter on the action. Characters actually have set schedules. Like NPCs are reliably in the same place every day. Like they actually do things. You can talk to just about anyone, and they have voice dialogue. You can go in a lot of buildings, which in GTA 3 you could only
Yeah.
go in like ammunition. You know.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge difference. I remember when GTA 3 was in its hype cycle and people were like, "Oh my god, look at all the amazing new things you can do." I was like, they don't even have distinguishable fingers. Like Shenmue had a lot more than this. So yeah, Shenmue is hugely influential, and I think that it set the blueprint for what open world games would become. Even though GTA 3 is kind of recognized for being that.
Yeah.
Makes sense. It's something I've never played because I've seen a little bits of gameplay here and there, and it definitely feels like it's like it might have been aged too much for me to go back and try. It's a little
I
too slow paced.
I
I'm
think you can
aware
get
that
it.
this.
You just need to give it a chance, be on the same level as it, and I think you can still enjoy it. But yeah, there is some clunk. There is some clunk there.
Yeah, and I know they've
Yeah.
gotten those new versions that they've ported it up, so it is possible to play it thanks to Shenmue 3. But I think it's also one of those things where it's like I'd have to get into it just for the gameplay itself and the immersion part of it because I don't think I'm going to get anything out of the story knowing the story has still not been resolved. So, and probably never will be.
It is tough knowing that the story kind of hasn't moved along much, but one thing I'll say that is really cool about it is it's one of those rare games that gives you the freedom, to completely screw yourself. Like, I remember in my first playthrough of Shenmue, when I first discovered the arcade, I was like, "What happens if I just choose to play arcade games forever? You'll eventually lose. You'll eventually get a
Oh.
game over just from going to the game center and playing every day."
This is what you get for not going to prom.
Exactly.
Oh, that's amazing. I've seen from a lot of people that Yakuza is sort of the more modern Shenmue,
Yeah.
more active Shenmue
Oh,
type
it
thing.
absolutely is. It is probably what Shenmue would have become had Sega kept making them.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Makes sense. All right. Well, that's number 8. Any guess, Steve and John, to what number 7 is?
Is this okay? We said a few games already. Will this be a recurring one? Have we said this game's name already?
You have not said this game's name already.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
okay.
kind of shocking. So we said House of the Dead, Jet Set Radio, Marvel vs. Capcom, and Rayman 2, and it's none of those. Crazy Taxi.
Yeah,
maybe.
that's a solid bet. Actually, I'm with you on this. Crazy Taxi. Oh no.
Okay, I was like, I thought for some reason I thought both of you were going to say like I didn't expect you guys to agree.
We're double downing on Crazy Taxi.
You're double downing on Crazy Taxi. All right, good to know. Getting crazy in here. At number 7, it's not Crazy Taxi.
Dang it.
Skies of Arcadia.
Oh.
With 1,153 points, very handily beating out Shenmue.
A notorious blind spot in my Dreamcast library. I only had a limited number of games I could play, and for me, I would say that Grandia 2 occupied my like JRPG spot on my Dreamcast list. So Skies of Arcadia is super cool, I bet. I just never got around to it. I think my sister has it on GameCube. Now I want to go steal it.
It is a phenomenal game. There's very few JRPGs on the Dreamcast. You're basically choosing between Grandia 2, Evolution, and Skies of Arcadia, and that's most of what you have.
Pretty much.
And Skies, though, it is, even though it's like a small selection, it's still utterly phenomenal. There is nothing quite like it. It is a pirate RPG. You're going around in these floating boats. It's just so cool going to these islands in the sky. The music is incredible. The battle system is great. The characters are fantastic. It's just a classic RPG. If you didn't have a PlayStation and you went straight to the Dreamcast, I don't think you'd even be missing out. Like, this is the Final Fantasy kind of tier quality.
I've heard amazing things about Skies of Arcadia. In fact, I spent years tracking down a copy of Arcadia on GameCube because we did get that port. And I know people have been wanting to have like a HD version or some sort of remaster or something for Skies of Arcadia. Please, Sega. And they just have yet to do it. And I finally did get a copy of the GameCube version. I just haven't played it yet. It's a goal this year to actually play through Skies of Arcadia this year. It's something I really want to try to do, because I've just heard great things. The character Vice, and I think I forget the girl's name. They appeared in Valkyria Chronicles, which is one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 3. So it's like I got that connection with them. Aika, thank you, Soniku. I get why people were up there. And I was actually very curious, like, is Skies of Arcadia going to make it? Because I know it's a bit of a cult favorite, but is it enough to get past everything else? So I was actually pretty surprised to see it reach number 7.
Yeah, not very many Dreamcast games are better on other systems. Like, most of them are still definitive on Dreamcast. I think this one might actually be a little bit ahead on GameCube, because the random encounters on Dreamcast can be quite excessive. And I haven't played Legends myself, but I hear that they tighten those up to be more spread out on GameCube. But there were cool things in this on Dreamcast. Like, there's DLC, a DLC island that you can just download, which is nuts for, what was it, 2000 this game came out? It's crazy.
Something
There's
like
just
that.
a whole downloadable island. Yeah, it's so ambitious, and it still looks beautiful today.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to trying it out. I really am. So cool to see that make number 7. But yeah, 1,153 points. So it is a pretty massive jump over Shenmue.
Wow.
But yeah, John, Steve, what is our number 6 game of all time for the Dreamcast?
I'll let Steve go first.
Yeah.
I've been too fast on the bullet. He needs to.
I feel like,
Ready on the buzzer.
I'm in an interesting position. So let me ask this: what's the delta in points between this one and Skies of Arcadia?
It is only 23 points ahead.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So it could have gone either way.
It really could have.
Caitlin says, "Give me Puyo Puyo Fever." Caitlin, they're not going to vote for that. Caitlin, you know that. We know this.
And
You'll get your Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine and like it.
So only 27 points difference. Not enough to
23
really
points.
Or 23 points. So not a decisive victory by any stretch. And you know what? I'm gonna ask the question John asked. Is it one we've already said?
It is not one you've already said.
Oh. Yeah, I feel like the pool keeps getting smaller.
Not an official guess. You might have mentioned it offhand, but
Okay.
you've not done it as an official guess.
You know what? We still don't have a fighting game outside of Power Stone 2. We don't have any Capcom 2D fighters on the board. So, gosh, you know what? I'm gonna go with what I think the audience would go for, not what I would personally go for. I'm gonna say Capcom versus SNK 2.
All right.
So, what spot are we on now? Number 6?
This is number 6.
We haven't got that many spots left. We haven't had Crazy Taxi. We've not had Jet Set Radio. We've not had Sonic Adventure. We are running out of spots. And we also haven't had Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or Street Fighter 3. Or Soul Calibur.
Or Soul Cal.
We are running low on
Soul
games to
Calibur.
say, but we have too many games to say. Okay. I'll stick on. So you said SNK. Capcom vs. SNK.
I love this.
Yeah.
I'll go with Street Fighter 3.
All right. Well, I can confidently say you're both in the right genre.
It's Marvel
the
vs.
wrong
Capcom
games.
2, isn't it?
Nope.
It's
At
not Soul
number
Calibur.
6, Soul Calibur.
No, that should be.
so
That
close!
should be
I'm
top
shocked
3.
I'm shocked that it didn't make top 5,
Yeah.
top 3.
Yeah.
Missed out at number 6.
I haven't really stuck with Soul Calibur as a series, but for Soul Calibur 1 and 2 are phenomenal, and Soul Calibur 1 is one of my favorite fighters of all time. This game in particular, you look at it, and it still looks like it could be modern in many ways. Just put it in HD, and it still looks beautiful. But the systems this game has are incredible. Was it Soul Blade on PS1 or Soul Edge?
Yeah, it had both titles.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's both,
one
depending on
was
the
the
region.
arcade and one was PS1. I want to say
Yeah.
Soul Blade was PS1.
I think
I
that's
feel
right.
like Soul
I think
Edge was arcade.
But you put them side by side, and it's not even close. It's just
Oh, what a
such a
jump.
drastic difference. And at 60 FPS as well. Like booting up the system, seeing these groundbreaking visuals play at 60 FPS. You can use the Sega fishing rod to swing around and land hits as well. You can do anything in this game. Yeah, it's just so fun to play and so solid. Hasn't aged a single day.
Yeah, Soul Calibur was one of the 2 games that I would take around to friends' houses when they wanted to see my Dreamcast. Like, I would bring Sonic Adventure and Soul Calibur with me just to show people like how huge of a leap this was across everything. And one of my favorite things to do in that game was that you could change the characters in the intro to be whoever you want.
Yeah.
So I just swapped everybody out for Voldo. Like every single character. And it generates some nightmare fuel imagery for you. But
I'm sure.
this was like the game for fighting game fans for a while. Like Soul Calibur was just kind of it enjoyed a pretty long moment in the spotlight, and I think without the Dreamcast version of Soul Calibur, you never get that amazing Soul Calibur 2 on GameCube with Link.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
And as the Dragon 98 says, Dreamcast version was better than arcade, which is crazy. Because at that point, consoles always had to be downgraded and just put aside somewhat. And Dreamcast, for the most part, of like House of the Dead and Crazy Taxi, was able to be on par. But yeah, this game was ahead of arcade.
And there's also just a ton of features to it. That was also unique. I mean, Tekken was also a bit of definitely a forerunner, and then just adding extra content beyond the arcade to make it more appealing on console. And Soul Calibur continued that trend and is just gorgeous and fun. And I'm trying to think why it might have ranked lower than we expected. And I think it's because it's probably supplanted a little bit by Soul Calibur 2 in a lot of people's minds. Or Soul Calibur as a series hasn't really
It's been gone
done
for
super
a while.
well. Yeah, like it had by all accounts, Soul Calibur 6 was a pretty good game, and it sold well enough, just not well enough to survive. Like Soul Calibur is definitely in a state of flux right now where it possibly couldn't come back because it doesn't have a champion, which is weird to think about with this thing. But this is Soul Calibur is sort of like pure Soul Calibur. It doesn't have any guest stars. It's just its cast. It is what it's all about. And I'm pretty sure there was an HD version released, but it was delisted. I think that's back in the PS.
Both 1 and 2 were delisted.
Yeah, and it's back. I think it was back in the PS3 360 era. So give it another shot. That's perfect for like re-release it on HD.
Yeah.
Get it on the Switch, and you can get your link back on
Exactly.
for the Soul Calibur 2, because I know that was a big complaint about Soul Calibur 2 HD. But yep, number 6. So
all right.
Yep. That is pretty much my 3D fighting game. That's the one I really ended up gravitating towards.
Yeah.
We've reached the top 5. So, John, Steve, what is our number 5 Dreamcast game of all time? I can say at this point, with you guys trying to run down the list about what number 6 could be, you have literally said every single game that remains on the list. just to give you a
right.
Wait, so you're saying there's no Choo Choo Rocket in the top 10?
I'm sorry to say there was no Choo Choo Rocket in the top 10.
Oh, that's blasphemy. But you know what? I'm going to go for what I think would be the bottom of the top 5. And it hurts me to say this. Jet Set Radio. I'm coming back to it, baby. We've said it. Yeah. I feel like it's got to be in there.
Oh, Crazy Taxi's got to be here, right? You can't have a top 10 without Crazy Taxi. And I don't think people are voting for Crazy Taxi 2. It's not bad, but it's not top 10.
I think Crazy Taxi is going to be higher than 5, though. I think that when you think about games that entered like the mainstream consciousness for the Dreamcast, Crazy Taxi is in lots of people's top 3.
I hope you're right. I sincerely hope you're right. Okay.
I love the debate.
So you're going Jet Set Radio. We're going to save Crazy Taxi for a bit later, because it should be later. I will continue. I'll say Street Fighter 3 again.
All right. At number 5, John, You got the right genre again, but it's not Street Fighter 3.
Oh.
At number 5, Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
I really
With-
thought
Oh,
people
wow,
would go higher than
okay.
this.
Yeah, with
Yeah, I thought MVC2 would be
1,214
4.
points, beating out Soul Calibur by about 40.
Okay.
I'm just
Pretty
unmoored
close.
now. I don't exist in this plane. Yeah, MVC2 is a great pick. I honestly thought we would have gotten it a little bit higher, but also I'm a huge fighting game fan, so I think that makes sense. What can you say about Marvel vs. Capcom 2 that hasn't already been said? Like the internet collectively lost their minds when Capcom re-released it a little bit ago.
Yeah.
It makes sense for it to be here. It is, probably peak Capcom versus fighting game. There's a great reason for it to be here. I wish it was like number 3. I really wanted that. For me personally, it's probably in my top 3 Dreamcast games.
As a fighter, I do generally prefer Soul Calibur, but Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is still just so incredible. Capcom already figured out the peak of a 2D fighter with Street Fighter 2, and they just kept building that foundation, and it got to a point where they could have a roster of a ridiculous number, just a giant sphere of characters that you can choose between. No fighting game had anything like this before at this point, and it took years until anyone would again. It's crazy, like just trying to choose a character in this game. There's so much to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny going to Marvel vs. Capcom 1, seeing the limited, 12, 14 characters. I mean, there's a lot of support characters you can have as well, but can't actually fight as them. So it was kind of genius to take those support characters and be like, let's just give them a full moveset and everybody can just support each other.
Yeah.
It's very just ingenious in that way. And a lot of sprite reuse. I mean, the big joke among the community is that Morgan sprite lasted forever.
Yeah.
She never changed.
It's really funny going back to reviews from the day when it came out. A lot of people criticize the soundtrack. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
There's a lot of reviews out there being like, this game's soundtrack sucks. Yeah, it's just hip hop. It's just like a bunch of loops. But today, like when you think Marvel vs. Capcom 2, one of the first things you think about is the soundtrack.
It's
absolutely.
Different. Like you have you sort of the classic what you'd expect with Marvel 1 and before that, but then you just get this weird esoteric set of songs, but nobody forgets it's going to take you for a ride.
No,
it is embedded in your head as soon as you hear it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that one of the things I really liked about MVC2 in particular as well was the fact that it had some Capcom characters that at the time didn't really make sense for a fighting game. Like you had Jill Valentine in there as a playable character. Yeah. I really like that Capcom, this one embodies that it's versus Capcom, whereas MVC1 was very Street Fighter heavy.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That was just sort of the evolution from all the way up. And, as it's been said, I mean, this is definitely the version up until the release of the collection. This was still considered the best home console version of Marvel 2. Every other one just couldn't quite capture that same, the inputs, the just how right it feels for a lot of hardcore players.
I think it's still somewhat is considered the best one. Input latency, I think, is still best on Dreamcast.
It might be, but this might be just, we finally got something close with that collection that it's like, okay, at least we can play online with this one. We don't have to go back to it. So yeah. Man, it's, I wasn't sure how well it would do, but I honestly expected Soul Calibur to place higher than it, but it is cool to see MVC.
This is more famous today.
It is more,
and
it's more recent.
MVC2 is much more beloved in the current climate.
Yeah, for sure. All right. It's time for our number 4 game of all time for the Sega Dreamcast. Options are getting limited. What all do you think made number 4?
Are we gonna have a top 10 without Jet Set Radio? I think we might.
I'm beginning to think we're going to. I've lost hope at this point for Jet Set Radio, and everything is placing about 1 or 2 spots lower than I think it should. So I actually think this is Crazy Taxi's moment. I think that it's going to disappoint me. I'm preparing for it. I'm braced for it, but I think this is Crazy Taxi.
Well, I don't think people are ranking Street Fighter 3 above Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Exactly.
So there might be a chance.
I think we're done with fighting games.
Rayman
I
2
think
might
I
not
think
be on
that
the
was
list.
the last fighting game.
I hope Rayman 2's on there, but it's probably not. It's probably not. So we haven't got Sonic Adventure. We haven't got Sonic Adventure 2. We haven't had Crazy Taxi. What could the fourth one be?
Sonic Adventure 2, Crazy Taxi. I'm trying to think, like, what is a mainstream, everybody knows about it Dreamcast game that could still have a chance at making it in? Like, everybody knows Shenmue 2. There's zero chance Shenmue 2 is on here.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, Derek said we said them all though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have
oh, that's
mentioned
true. He
Well,
did
all
say
four-
we said
all
them.
four
I'm
remaining
locking
games.
Rayman 2 in that case because this is the best version of it.
Yeah, I'm going with Crazy Taxi.
All right, Crazy Taxi and Rayman 2. Which one? Which one is wrong?
what a difference between those two games. At number 4, Steve was correct.
Nice.
Crazy Taxi.
Hey, disappointment
yeah.
wins.
With 1,415 points, beating out Marvel by 200 points.
I told myself that Crazy Taxi was going to be number 3, and I realized once MVC2 came up that I'm totally wrong. So I had to adjust my expectations a bit. What can't you say about Crazy Taxi though? Like, it is just stupid fun, like driving around, as a mad person, bringing people to where they need to go. It really feels kind of like an encapsulation of what made arcade games great in the era in which consoles were finally starting to kill them.
Yeah, it is simply one of the best games of all time. I'm always in the mood for Crazy Taxi. There's never a time I'm just feeling like too down. It lifts your spirits. And what makes it great as an arcade conversion is that in the arcade, you have to go as fast as you can. You can't really make mistakes. On the console, you can take the time to learn the city. You've got those challenge missions to learn how to do drifts and learn how to do quick start boosts. There's a lot of mastering you can do in the console version, which you can then take your knowledge and adapt it to the arcade version. But everything's here. There's no need to go to the arcade. It's pretty much arcade perfect. And it's just so fun. It never stops being fun. Crazy Taxi 2 is great too, has the jump, but I think the city of the first game just feels more alive. And I kind of like not being able to jump because it makes you take more daring shortcuts, like going through like the parking lot or trying to take ramps to get places rather than just relying on a jump. I think that's better for this game.
You guys are going to kill me. I've never played Crazy Taxi. Ever.
Do it now.
Wow.
It's on like every system. You can get it on GameCube,
You
get it on
can even
Xbox.
get it on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it, obviously, and it looks fun, but the closest I've ever came to playing Crazy Taxi is the Simpsons version.
Road Rage is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, but I know it's not Crazy Taxi, and that's the difference. And everybody talks about the soundtrack. It's all about the soundtrack when it comes to Crazy Taxi, and that's like a big requirement for the new one coming out that people were talking about. It's like we got to have that soundtrack right now, but this is a big reason I really want either a Dreamcast NSO or Dreamcast Collection or Dreamcast Mini. It'd be there. I want it. I'd like to try it. I just haven't.
It is different without the offspring. They stopped licensing it with the PSP Fair Wars, and then not on 360, not on PlayStation 3, not on PC. So yeah, you've got to play GameCube or Dreamcast or PS2, but a Dreamcast is still the way to play.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's one of those games that, despite coming out multiple places since then, is still best on the original hardware.
But yeah, I'm not unexpected to see it in the top 10. But yeah, we have our top 3 Dreamcast games.
Oh boy,
John and Steve, what is number 3?
So Sonic Adventure 2, Rayman 2, Street Fighter 3. Is that what we're choosing between? Oh, House of the Dead 2. It won't be top 3 though.
You've said others.
Have we? Okay. That makes me think that it's something else then.
And Jet Set Radio is in there, which, gosh, like I want to believe that it's in the top 3, but
Space Channel 5. We haven't said Space Channel 5, but it's
Space Channel 5, but we didn't say it. Yeah, so we know it's not in there. Power Stone 1 is an option. We mentioned that. But I just don't see a fighting game being in the top 3 at this point, because if MVC2 which is considered by many to just be peak fighting game. I don't see something rating higher than that. Not another fighting game anyway.
Yeah. Probably not more sequels.
boy.
Not Shenmue 2. Not Crazy Taxi 2.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna vote with my heart, and I'm gonna say my number 3, or at least in my top 3, would have been Jet Set Radio. So I'm gonna throw Jet Set Radio back on.
That's a good chance.
I'm gonna hope that the community has my feelings in mind.
I feel like I'm digging in the wrong spot here repeatedly, but I'm going to stick with Rayman 2. I think I'd love for it to be here.
All right. At number 3, with 1,476 points, beating out Crazy Taxi by about 60, Jet Set Radio.
Yeah, okay.
Let's go! Oh, I knew you guys were good. I love this. Jet Set Radio is just like dripping with salt. I'm not on screen, right? Or am I? I don't know.
Your box needs to be like on your chest.
But look,
there you go.
I still have this. This is my original import copy of Jet Set Radio, and this game just oozes style. Like, it is so cool. Like, this is probably something that a lot of people don't talk about, but it was so different to every other Dreamcast game. Like, the paper on the book is made out of like this weird, like pulpy, gritty paper compared to every other Dreamcast game. And like the disc looks like a record. The minute you open it, you know you're in for this amazing time. But my favorite feature, it was really the first like proper cell shaded game that a lot of people played. It has these thick, like comic style outlines to it that a lot of cell shaded games even today don't have. But before this, there was never really a game about like graffiti, about it landed itself in like some legally murky water here in the US because Sega did a graffiti competition for the game, and like people weren't cool with that because graffiti was
such a shame.
When you boot the game up, there's a warning saying like, while graffiti is art, Sega do not condone graffiti.
Yeah, and
it's perfect counterculture, especially 90s counterculture. Well,
absolutely,
late 90s counterculture.
And it's just a game that I think showed people that cell shaded games were something we wanted, right? That popularized the style to a degree. Like it should have credit for helping build the popularity of the style before the Wind Waker.
Yeah, for sure.
But one of my favorite things was that you could just download graffiti designs off the internet on the Dreamcast and use them. And being the weirdo that I was back then, I downloaded stills from like the GameCube tech demo trailer. So like I was tagging walls with like pictures of Link from that like really terrible tech demo they did.
That's amazing.
As Caitlin said, this was kind of Sega's take on Tony Hawk. It came at like the perfect time. Like it's a mix of expression with graffiti, but it's also like Tony Hawk was hot then. Like, Tony Hawk's still hot, right? But like the actual gameplay of Tony Hawk, you can just grind on things. You can just do all this freestyling, and it is great in that regard.
Yeah.
I think
gotta stay away from the cops and fulfill those missions. Yeah.
It's a very iconic game. In my personal opinion, though, Future on Xbox is like a league better in control. Because when you go back to the first Jet Set Radio, it is a bit loose. It sometimes feels a little bit loose to grind. Whereas Future, I feel like perfected that control.
I've never touched Future, but I did pick up Jet Set Radio when it came out on PS3, and I felt those loose controls. Like I enjoyed myself, but I could definitely feel it's a little loose for what I expected. But I mean, it's the presentation, the style, the music, like everything about it is so good. Re-release again, you have it out there. It's like there's certain Dreamcast games that would be great Switch ports, and I don't know why Sega never did it.
Yeah, it kind of amazes me that Sega has let Jet Set Radio kind of die on the vine, as it were. Of course, it's coming back. Yeah. It's coming back. But the one thing I will say that I think the original Jet Set Radio does better than Future is I like the tagging inputs on the original far better than I like Future's. But I agree with everything you said about the control, like the actual like moment-to-moment control of your character feeling a lot tighter on the Xbox sequel.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
But regardless, though, the first one is still incredible. Future doesn't replace the first Jet Set Radio. There's still a lot to love. But I sincerely hope Future ranks in a similar spot on Xbox, because it really deserves it.
Yeah, it does.
I think Sega might end up with a pretty decent presence on Xbox when we get to that ranking.
Panzer Dragoon,
Yeah.
Shenmue 2.
Yeah, I think it has a pretty good chance.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. But well, we've reached the top two, and well, I think you both know what the
It's
top
Adventure
two
1 or
are.
Adventure 2.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's gotta be in that
I mean,
order.
Yeah.
this is the last time that Sonic can truly dominate a console. He has to compete against non-Sega entities on, like, he's not as prevalent on the other ones. He's still loved, but can he make the top 10 on these other systems? That's going to be the big question for me for Sonic in the future. But I guess the bigger question now is, and this has always been a big debate, which is better, Sonic Adventure 1 or Sonic Adventure 2? What came in at number 2?
I think recency bias is going to play a huge factor here. Because we obviously just had the Sonic 3 movie, which is largely based on Sonic Adventure 2. Mm-hmm. So I'm going with Sonic Adventure 1 at number 2.
So Adventure 1 is like an annual game for me. I'll play that every year, maybe multiple times a year. I adore Adventure 1. Adventure 2, I grew up with, still love it. Don't have quite the same affiliation, though. So I'm going to go with Adventure 2 for number 2.
All right. At number 2, with 2,085 points, handily beating out Jet Set Radio by like 600 points. Like, it was not even close. Sonic Adventure 2.
Oh, the correct one.
Yeah.
I am so proud. Like, I truly believed that the movie was going to be the reason that people chose 2. I agree 1 is the overall better game. Yeah. Like, 1 is so much more focused and tighter, and because of that, to me, is a better game. But Sonic Adventure 2, I just assumed with all the love Shadow's been getting lately that people would put Adventure 2 over the top. I'm very proud to be wrong on that.
I am definitely one of those that put 2 above 1, but I played 2 before 1, and when I went back to 1, it's like, this is fine. Like, I liked more of the game. I like the gameplay modes of 2 more than 1. I actually find 2 more focused.
That's interesting, because I feel like when you're just playing through 2, I think its focus gets interrupted a lot. So with Adventure 1, if you want to play as Sonic, you do all the Sonic levels. You want to play as Tails, you do the racing levels. Whereas Adventure 2, like, you're going from racing, you're going to these slower shooting levels, you're going to treasure hunting. It goes all over the place a lot. And there's kind of 2 styles to play Adventure 2, right? Like, you can just play through the game and say, like, well, that was fun. Or you can be in the Chow Garden and just play your favorite levels forever. And that is where a lot of people's love comes from. They are not thinking about playing the horrible Knuckles and Rouge space treasure hunting levels. They're ignoring that stuff. They are playing City Escape. They're playing White Jungle. They're playing Radical Highway again and again and again to grind their Chow stuff. So they're playing the stuff they love. And so the stuff they don't love, they can ignore. And that's why it's their favorite game. But if you do just play through the whole thing again and again, I think Adventure 2's flaws become a bit more evident.
Yeah, I will say, though, that Adventure 2 has, like, the coolest Sonic Special Edition I've ever gotten.
Yeah. That's the 10th anniversary, right?
10th anniversary, and it's over 20 years old.
Oh,
I want to turn into dust.
Yeah, with Adventure 2, it has this, of course it has these silly moments, and everybody loves the Chow Garden, but I do like the fact that they have these fun things that you can unlock. Like, it's a grind to do it, but if you get, it's kind of cool that if you get A ranks on everything, you get
Green Hill.
access to Green Hill in 3D.
But back when it was like cool for Green Hill to be in a game.
Yeah, it was rare. Like, man, we haven't seen Green Hill in forever. Where were you?
Yeah.
Kind of like the Koopalings for Mario.
I think Adventure 2 was definitely a game that you can just keep playing forever. The Chow Garden is better in Adventure 2. There's more to it. Adventure 1, though, I mean, we'll get into Adventure 1 a bit more in a moment, but I feel like Adventure 2 it's just that evergreen game. If you love the Chow Garden, it's just so easy to replay. And there's a lot to love in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that Adventure 2 is a fantastic game. I think that I will be honest, I wouldn't have put either of these at the top of the Dreamcast for me. But I think they're wonderful games that still hold up. I'm with John that I think Adventure 1 is ultimately the much more replayable game, though.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I think everybody knew Sonic was just going to dominate this one because it's the most widely available yet again. Plus, it's Sonic and
Mhm.
got the movie that just came out. It makes sense. And Sonic Adventure 2 is filled with amazing moments. I can think of moments of some more like key moments of Sonic Adventure 2 than I can of Sonic 1. There's a few, obviously, there's big ones of Sonic 1, but Sonic 2 has some
Blasting a
standout.
rocket out of a pyramid and then going to space, like
Yeah, exactly. just all of City Escape.
yeah,
The final battle is
Knuckles fighting a ghost.
quite epic.
Yeah,
Yeah, Knuckles fighting a ghost. Uh, certain kids being awakened to certain things by meeting Rouge.
yeah.
Oh no. No. You're not wrong, but no.
Yeah, I mean, Adventure 2 is a great time, and but yeah, Sonic Adventure 1 is number 1. Beating out Adventure 2 by, believe it or not, pretty handily by about 70 points.
Mm,
So
Wow.
it was
very
actually much more of a
close.
close, but also more of a distance than I thought there was going to be. Like,
I think you can feel this when playing. Adventure One, it's very different to most sequels. Adventure One was made by a larger team with a
Mhm.
larger budget. Adventure Two, smaller team, lower budget.
Yes.
And you can feel it. This game feels expensive. From the first level, it feels expensive when you're running away from that giant orca as it's crushing the whole, what would you even call it? The whole structure thing.
docks.
Yeah, the docks. Yeah. This game, it does so much with its budget. You can feel totally different levels. They all feel distinct. They all have their own gimmicks, like going through a tornado or, I don't know, the sky chase section. There's so many distinct moments of Adventure 1 and all its levels. And then you've got all the characters too. They all play completely differently. Whether you're racing as Sonic, whether you're fishing as Big, whether you're treasure hunting as Knuckles, or Amy's slower paced gameplay. It feels like a true adventure in a way that Adventure 2 only really feels like an adventure in its story. Like you get to go around the hub world, you get to actually be in this world in a way Adventure 2 doesn't do.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
it was such a cool showcase too. If
Yeah.
you picked up the Dreamcast at launch and you had Sonic Adventure, like I said, this was one of the 2 games that I took around to people to show them just how cool Sega's new console was, and like you said, John, the oh wow moment, especially back then, is that first level where you're running away from the orc and it's just destroying the ground behind you. I still remember how my friends who were skeptical of the Dreamcast back then saw that and they're like, "Whoa, okay, like I might need to get one of these. This is cool." And it's easy to take Sonic Adventure for granted now, but back then it was visually and mechanically one of the most impressive things anybody had put out anywhere ever. Like going from Mario 64 to Sonic Adventure, while I still to this day think Mario 64 is the better game overall, there's no denying that Sonic was much more impressive as like a first impression type of deal. Just the visuals were a huge leap beyond anything that you saw on the N64.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider that Sonic essentially missed the Dreamcast. I mean, it missed the Saturn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we had Sonic R, which gave you a small taste of Sonic in 3D, but it wasn't the gameplay you were expecting. So really, if you were following along with the platformers, you're going from 3D Blast to Adventure.
Yeah.
And my God, what a difference those games are as far as how Sonic plays and just looks. And I would see the commercials with the whale, and that was always definitely, they knew that whale was like a big deal and always highlighted. But you know what the next thing I saw of Sonic Adventure was when I was a kid? Again, I didn't grow up with the Dreamcast, but I went to a youth center with a friend once. We was just hanging out with him, and he went to a youth center, and he had his own thing to do. So I was just hanging out with these other kids there, and they had a separate room set up where somebody was playing the Dreamcast and we're playing Sonic Adventure. Do you know what level they were playing?
Speed Highway?
The final battle against Perfect Chaos.
Oh,
I was gonna go there.
That's how you sell a system.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap, this is amazing. Nearly sold me on the, like, I was like, I kind of want a Dreamcast now. I couldn't convince my parents, but I was like, seeing that out of nowhere, seeing how that all ended, is like, holy crap, you're Supersonic. Oh my God, you're running into this huge water monster. Oh my God, the city's destroyed. Like,
It's crazy.
Blew my
There's
mind
nothing
just
like
to go
that.
into that.
And you're totally right with where Sonic was before that, because it was Sonic 3D Blast or Sonic Jam's Hub World. That's your first taste of 3D. But when you think about what Sonic was before that, like Sonic 3 and Knuckles sort of dived into a bit more of a story, but it never really had a story. Not one that was like really told. But suddenly Adventure was like Metal Gear Solid, where you've got all this voice acting. And what was quite cool too is every story is told from a different perspective. And so you're not just rewatching the same cutscenes. Their dialogue is slightly changed to sort of match how the character remembered it or something like that. So they all overlap each other in a really cool way. It feels weird to talk about the story in a Sonic game, but that was a big part of it. You get the Dreamcast, and suddenly you've got this epic Sonic story. And it was pretty epic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
And it was a ridiculously good transition to 3D. Like, I think, with Mario, it was very easy to see how you could take 2D Mario gameplay and make a 3D game out of it.
Yeah.
Like, everything made sense, where with Sonic, this blisteringly fast creature who only moved left to right, it was really difficult to imagine what his world would look like in 3 dimensions. And Sega just absolutely nailed it the first go around. Obviously, controls could have been tighter. It has some of that famous 3D Sonic jank, but I mean, it was forgivable back then because it was their very first try. And it's, to this day, it's probably still my favorite representation of what Sonic's world looks like.
Same. It's interesting. A few years ago, I think the results would be different because a lot of people grew up with the GameCube version or the HD version. And it's been very well documented now that those are not anywhere near as good as Dreamcast. They're more glitchy. They feel rougher. The models are weird and shiny. But when you look back at the Dreamcast version, it actually feels really solid. I'm not saying it's perfect. You may occasionally run some glitches, but it's generally.
And people have it on PC, so they're able to get mods so they can get closer to the Dreamcast version.
And I love the skill ceiling too, because you can play it normally. But when you're playing as Sonic, you can just keep mashing the spin dash button and basically get unlimited speed. And there's momentum in there. So like in the opening of Emerald Coast, you've got the little ramp that goes up to the springs. If you just spin dash off that ramp and jump, you can skip like the entire loop-de-loop section. There's lots of really cool speedrun tech in here, and it makes it the most fun 3D Sonic to just replay over and over. I'm not much of a speedrunner, but I know Emerald Coast very well, and I just love to play that level again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so can't blame anybody. This is I knew Sonic Adventure would top 1 and 2 would top it. Wasn't sure which was going to be, but when you think about it, like Adventure really was the bigger budget, had just that newness of the first one. I think people have finally cooled on Big being different from what they expect and what they out
the
of a
only
Sonic
shortcoming
game.
with Big is not supporting the Sega Bass Fishing controller. You put that thing
That
in
is
there and
really
suddenly it's perfect.
There we go. That's what we need. But I think people have like come around on a lot of this, the other characters and how they play.
Yeah.
In a lot
Big
of ways.
isn't even that bad. Like it's the shortest story, and it's just arcade fishing. It's pretty fun. Back then, it's like, well, this is a Sonic game. Why are you fishing? But once you've accepted it, it's all right.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, there is our top 10 Dreamcast games of all time. Obviously, there's some thoughts in there about what should have made the top 10 that did not quite make it there. So as always, as our sort of a new thing we've started doing, I forget how long ago, we'll take a look at the top 50 just to break down more of what the Dreamcast had to offer. So let's see how the rest of it rolled out. So just missing number 10 by 60 points or 70 points, excuse me, Power Stone.
So it was going to be Power Stone 2, Power Stone 1.
Yeah, they were right next to each other. I was like, oh, okay, sure. At number 12, missing at 401 points, Rayman 2.
I would have loved to see this in the top 10. I think it's one of the best. It's one of the best 3D platformers of all time, and the Dreamcast version is so delightful. You get 480p VGA, you get 16:9, you get more levels, it's 60 FPS. It's still today the best version of this game.
Mm-hmm. I only played the PS2 version, but I loved it on there when I played it. What would you, out of curiosity, John, since I know you love Rayman 2, what would you replace? What would you take out and put in Rayman 2 instead?
It's hard to say who am I going to upset here?
Right?
I'm trying to remember all the lists now. Okay.
It was Power Stone 2, Fantasy Star Online, Shenmue, Skies of Arcadia, Soul Calibur, NVC 2, Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2.
It's hard to take any of those games out.
Right?
Yeah. Let's say Shenmue maybe. I love Shenmue,
Oh.
but I think maybe it's not. I think I prefer Rayman 2 a bit more. I can't think of any other game would like to take out of that list.
Oh,
How
wow.
dare you?
All right. Number 13, just missing out on Rayman 2 by 12 points. Resident Evil Code Veronica.
Ooh, Code Veronica is a solid choice too. I can't believe
very
that
good.
didn't pop into my mind at any point.
I
think it's
considered
because
it.
it's been supplanted by others, and
I considered it, but it's still. I think it's not quite. There's too many other great games that kind of overtake it, and Code Veronica is great, but I don't know if it's quite. It's not quite a Resident Evil 2 level. I think that's kind of what people think of in this era.
for sure. At number 14, Choo Choo Rocket.
Should be higher. Again, I don't know what you'll take out, but Choo Choo Rocket should be in the top 10.
The top 10 should allow for 15.
I think that something that I weighed when going into the top 10 is historical significance, and I think that Choo Choo Rocket has some pretty heavy historical significance, because if maybe I'm misremembering, but I think it was the first online game on the Dreamcast.
I think that's right. That's correct.
And I know it was the longest standing. It stayed alive longer than anything else.
People are still playing it today online. And even as a local game too, 4 controllers out of the box, it is so fun. Whenever like a group of friends come over, we tend to play Choo Choo Rocket because it's just the ultimate party game.
That's really cool. I didn't experience it until it came out on mobile. I actually put it on mobile. I'd play it during breaks at work, and I was just like, man, this game's so much fun. It's actually really fun. I only played single player, of course, but it was still really cool to just figure it all out. It played well. I felt like it's one of the few mobile games like I was like, this is cool. I like this, but then it got delisted, so I don't no longer have it. So thanks, Sega.
That's interesting because I played Choo Choo Rocket on the Dreamcast, but I never took it online for whatever reason. I actually played the majority of Choo Choo Rocket on the Game Boy Advance, and I had so much fun with it. Yeah. Like it was the game. Like again, dating myself, I worked at Target at the time, and any time like the store would slow down, I'd just whip out my Game Boy and like hide in a corner and play some Choo Choo Rocket to avoid working.
Why the hell isn't this on Switch? Snap off a Joy-Con and 2, just put it in tabletop mode and play Choo Choo Rocket with your friend. It's perfect for that.
You'd think.
Yeah.
Sega's missing out on some opportunities here, but that who knows. I saw Plus Play to Jason saying like it's lower than Code Veronica. What the heck? It missed it by 16 points.
It should be higher than Code Veronica. But yeah, keep going.
Number 15, Grandia 2.
Oh, that's a tough one for me. See, now, this for me would have been an easy swap with Skies of Arcadia. But if for no other reason than I just actually played this one.
Yeah, you played it. There you go.
But honestly, Grandia 2 is one of my favorite RPGs. Just full stop. Like I replayed it on Switch when it came out. Loved it again. I still have my original copy floating around back here somewhere, but it just like told such an amazing story. The characters were really likable. I remember getting this because I had pre-ordered Phantasy Star Online, and I got this game. I got Grandia 2 for like the holiday that preceded, because I think I got PSO in January. And so for Christmas, I got this, and I was like, I have to beat this game before PSO comes. And I ended up having the time of my life. I probably played all of Grandia 2 in like 3 days.
Oh my God.
And that was back, I had so little material responsibility or importance in the world that I could just disappear into a hole for 3 days and play a game and no one would notice. Yeah. So I did exactly that. And I loved this game so much. Like it's just become one of my favorite RPGs of all time.
This is one I played on PS2 instead, but it was great there as well.
I haven't played it yet, but I do have the collection on Switch. So I eventually want to check out both Grandia games, honestly.
Caitlin's right there. Where is House of the Dead 2?
I keep wondering.
Yeah, we haven't quite reached it there, because at number 16 is Space Channel 5.
Nice.
Okay.
17, Shenmue 2.
Okay.
18. This is where you're gonna find Street Fighter 3 Third Strike.
Surprising. Yeah. I mean, I can understand
low.
not being top 3 when there's so many great fighters, but I thought this would at least be like top 15.
I have a feeling it'll put in a better showing in the 90s arcade
True.
list. Number 19, Ikaruga. Only lost to Third Strike by 1 point.
Oh,
it's interesting because it was a Japan-only game, and I think most of the West kind of thinks GameCube and they think Ikaruga, but yeah, this is where it started.
Yep.
All right. At number 20, The House of the Dead 2.
All right.
All right.
It made top 20, Fair. 255 points. Missed out from Ikaruga by 2 points. So it was a tight race between 18 through 20.
We need to talk to the audience a second, though. When it comes to arcade, we are not to forget light gun games, okay? We're not just talking about fighters. We're talking Time Crisis. We're talking House of the Dead. We're talking Point Blank. Vote for them, please.
Yeah. We'll have to see. Also, reminder, when we're talking 90s arcade games, MVC2 didn't come out until 2000. It is not a 90s arcade game. I know we're going to get votes for that.
Street Fighter, oh gosh, Capcom versus SNK is out. Millennium Battle is literally in the name.
Yeah.
You'd be stuck with like Street Fighter 2, some of the alphas, not all of them. Mm-hmm. So that's a tough call.
You have to consider your SNK games as well. Which, speaking of, number 21, Capcom versus SNK 2.
Yeah.
Man, I would have expected this to be way higher. But again, that's my own bias.
People haven't been able to play it, and maybe after this collection,
Marvel has supplanted it in people's subconscious. I think they're not as familiar.
It really has, and I will die on this hill. CVS is the better versus fighting game. Like it is.
I'm looking forward to checking out, especially since I've got into King of Fighters. So, yeah. Oh, Shell Shock points out Dreamcast version didn't release here, so that's a good point.
Okay,
that's true. CVS2 only came out in Japan. You got CVS2 EO on the GameCube in America.
That's right. But yeah, I also think if we'd done this poll after the release of the second arcade collection, it might have put out a better showing because it's pretty much the star game of that collection. Anyway, number 22, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. 23. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that's an interesting one because the press in particular was, I think Tony Hawk, like most Tony Hawk games, got perfect 10s across the board for most things back then.
If you look at
Tony Hawk did very well, but it's not been able to break the top 10.
I don't really think Dreamcast when I think Tony Hawk, though.
No.
Yeah, I think most people think PlayStation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. 23, Samba de Amigo.
Cool.
At 24, Project Justice.
Nice.
Rival Schools 2. So good to see that in here. At 25, Rez.
Very cool too.
Nice to people remember that. 26, Dead or Alive 2.
Yeah. Kind of gets forgotten about in the pool of fighters because there's so many good ones. And Dead or Alive 2 is really good as well.
Yeah, and DOA ended up aligning very closely with Xbox. I know that's what I think of when I think of Dead or Alive these days.
It became exclusive, which was unfortunate because I love DOA 2 on PS2, but oh well. Number 27, Crazy Taxi 2.
It's good. It's a good game.
Yeah. 28, Seaman.
Oh, Seaman.
I've never played Seaman. I feel like I have.
I've not either.
So Seaman is such a fantastic game. I had no end of fun with this thing. So Seaman could learn profanity.
Oh yeah.
And
it's Lemon Nimoy,
I didn't realize,
fish, right?
No, Leonard Nimoy is the narrator.
Oh, okay.
So there's a narrator, and he basically gives you the intro and the outro to Seaman. But I remember there was a point at which I had 2 Seamen in my tank. I have to put that pause in there. And one ate the other, or like killed mated with the other and killed it. And my girlfriend at the time like ugly cried at the fact that this was happening, and I could not stop laughing. It was the most hysterical thing on earth to me. Seeing her cry over these like disgusting fish, frog, human face people. Like it was.
What a weird
I found no end of enjoyment in it, and it just gets weirder and weirder. It spirals so far, and It's one of the most surreal gaming experiences I've ever had, and I would love to play it again, but probably I wouldn't
I
I
wouldn't bet
wouldn't
on that
hook up a
coming back.
Dreamcast again to play it.
Caitlin
No.
says he got a sequel in Japan.
It did,
I had no
and
idea.
it got a PS2 port as well.
I knew that.
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
god. Oh,
I do.
alright.
I need to play this game before I die. I feel like it's kind of a rite of passage. At some point.
There was a moment at which I taught it the profane word for having a poo, and it would do it on command, and it would like flick it at the tank.
Oh my god. It's an insane game. I'm a little perturbed. I was like, oh, come on. Because it beat out number 29, The Typing of the Dead, by 1 point.
Which they're
Typing the
both,
Dead
they're
is
both
my
kind of
dead
meme
game.
games, but Typing of the Dead is
True.
genuinely good though.
Yeah, it is.
It
It's
is.
a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
It's
I
just
play
nice to
that.
be there too,
I
apart
never
from you
played it
die.
on Dreamcast though. I played it on Steam, but
Mm.
super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard people learned how to type with this game because, like, in that
Makes
period,
sense.
keyboards were still pretty new. It's kind of a new thing still, and
Honestly, they should bring it back because a lot of people have forgotten how to type.
but it's genuinely fun while also being a bit educational. And they kind of continue that on the DS. There's the English of the Dead, a Japanese-only game that teaches you English by playing House of the Dead 2.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, I know we got the the Overkill on
Yeah.
Wii. I think also eventually got a
did.
Typing of the Dead version. So I love that carried on.
Yeah,
At number 30, Illbleed.
that's a cool one. It's
Mhm.
it's a
Yeah.
bit of a funky game. It's funny because it's got like the Sonic Adventure voice cast in there, so you'll recognize a lot of really familiar voices sounding like exactly like Knuckles or whatever else. But it's like a horror
Uh-huh.
game. Yeah, it's a little janky around the edges, but there's a lot of fun in there though.
For sure. At 31, Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver.
Nice, best version until
yeah.
it gets the
Yeah.
remasters.
For sure. 32, Sega Bass Fishing.
Also, I
let's
hadn't
go.
played this until we did the Dreamcast video. 'Cause I wanted to get the fishing rod so I could use it in Soul Calibur and Virtua Tennis. But then I actually played Sega Bass Fishing as well. And it's actually a lot of fun. It's just pure arcade enjoyment. It's good. It's good.
Very cool. 33, Marvel vs. Capcom 1.
Mm.
At
I'm not
30
It
shocked.
fits.
it's just not as well known.
Yeah.
I think it's gotten a little bit of revival thanks to the collection, but it's MVC2 will always overtake it. Impressive showing here, honestly, to me, is at number 34, Garo, Mark of the Wolves.
Oh wow, that is impressive. I would not have expected that in the top 50 even. Excellent game. It's basically SNK's Street Fighter 3.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It's kind of shocking we haven't had Virtua Tennis yet, unless you're about to say Virtua Tennis. We'll see.
Nope. Number 35, Resident Evil 2.
It's a good version, but it's
Yeah.
not that different to the PS1 version.
Not really. And actually tied at 35 with Resident Evil 2, Daytona USA. It was a Dreamcast version.
Oh,
Yeah.
Differentiated by Daytona USA 2001.
Right. This has like really loose controls if you're playing with an analog stick, but if you're using the steering wheel, it's actually really good. They just didn't quite tune it right to a controller, but if you're using a steering wheel, it's like arcade perfect.
Oh, nice. I've never
gonna
played
say,
that version. I was only
Daytona
familiar
is
with Saturn.
essentially as close to a meme game as a racer can get for me these days, thanks to the song, as I can see the chats popping off about. But it is a really competent racing game, but you do have to play it, like John said, with the right setup, or else it just kind of feels sloppy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. By the way, a lot of these are just separated by like single points or like 3 points. Like it gets really close from this point on. It's at 37, Hydro Thunder.
Cool.
Classic
Okay.
arcade racer. 38, Space Channel 5 Part 2.
All right.
Tied at 39, Virtua Tennis and Dynamite Cop.
Virtual Tennis doesn't get the recognition it deserves, but it is so fun, and yeah, you can play it with the fishing rod. You can get Wii Tennis in like 1999 or whatever year.
That's amazing. At 41, Metropolis Street Racer.
Cool.
42, Sonic Shuffle.
Oh,
So,
You
Sonic
got it,
Shuffle,
higher than I expected.
I think emulation has given this game a worse reputation than it deserves. I'm not saying it's fantastic, but I am saying if you've got a group of friends, a VMU in every controller, because on the VMU you get your cards, and that's hidden on the TV. You've got Wii U style gameplay going on here, Every player can see
Right.
their deck by looking down. It's hidden from everyone else. It's really unique in that way, and you don't get that if you emulate it.
No, you definitely
So
don't.
I bought this back when it was new. I brought it home, and I didn't have 4 players, but I did have 3, and we did have 3 VMUs. And I got shamed into never playing it again. Like I was playing it with my brother and my sister was like, "This game sucks." She was like, "Turn this off." Like the whole game. She hated it so much that I eventually just gave up. I was like, I'll put this away. I'm sorry.
Well, we need to do a 24-hour GVG Sonic Shuffle live stream whenever we get
Oh, God.
together in person. We'll ignore any actual stuff that we could be doing together that may benefit the channel. We can play Sonic Shuffle the entire time.
We'll
There
go
you
to
go.
Summer Game Fest and play Sonic Shuffle instead.
Jeff will ask us to leave, and then we'll just hand him a controller and go, come on, Jeff, join us.
All right. Number 43, Blue Stinger.
Cool.
44, Bangai-O. 45, Sakura Wars 3, or Sakura Taisen.
You'd have to play a fan translation to really be in on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. 46, Capcom versus SNK 1.
Mm.
That's slower than I would have liked, but fair.
Yeah. 47, Sega Rally 2.
Okay.
48, Spider-Man, the Neversoft game.
Oh, okay. Good choice.
Yeah. 49, I've never heard of this one. Napple Tale, Arzia and Daydream.
I don't think I know that.
Well, yeah, no, that's I'm lost on that one.
I'm not 100% sure what that one is, but we actually have a tie for number 50. Makken X, which is part of the Shin Megami Tensei series, and the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Mm.
Okay.
No Puyo Puyo at all.
No,
I can
we did get
excuse-
some votes, but so just to have a range of there, I don't know the exact placement just because of, I don't bother at a certain point. Tony Hawk got 48 points. Puyo Pop Fever got 32.
Okay. I feel like Puyo Puyo N4 should be in there. Because Fever...
it got some votes,
All right.
but it only got 28 points.
Fever's
So
great.
it beat out Fever it lost to Fever by 4 points.
Fever's like the last game that Sega published on the console, and it was in like 2004. And
Yes.
it's cool. It can change the Dreamcast menu to 3D, so that's a cool gimmick. But I don't know. I feel like 4's just kind of it's more a renowned one, at least a more official one, because it didn't come after the system already died. But yeah, I would like to see that, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. I just looked up Napple Tale, and it seems to be it's a 2.5D platformer. Notable for cultivating a feminine sensibility in its design by employing primarily women for its creative staff. There is an English patch out there for it, developed by Chime, which I'm not familiar with them. Composer was Yoko Kanno,
wow.
which is Cowboy Bebop's composer, composed the music for this game, which, okay, that's something.
There's still a few games I think I would have liked to see in the top 50. I would like to see Quake 3. That's like a Fantasy Star Online kind of deal, like online on a console with Quake 3 with keyboard and mouse support.
It got 16 points.
Okay.
Dude, did Unreal Tournament rate anywhere? Because I played a lot of that.
Unreal Tournament got 42 points, so it almost made the top 50.
Did the people vote for Super Magnetic Neo? Was anyone out there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Super Magnetic Neo got 31 points. Missed out on Puyo Pop Fever by 1.
Okay.
All right, let's see. I'm gonna try to dig up the most obscure Dreamcast game that I liked.
Did anyone vote for Pen Pen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pen Pen got. I know what that game is when John mentioned it. Pen Pen Trilcyon got 22 points.
Nice.
22
It's a
points.
cool game.
Did anybody vote for Berserk? There was a Berserk game on the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
Yep. Berserk actually got 37 points. It did pretty well.
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Proud of you, Dreamcast fans.
Sega
you know
Gaga, you got some votes on there. Sega Gaga got 10 points.
I want to know if there was at least one unhinged person out there who voted for Dream Passport.
Voted for what?
Dream
What's it called?
Passport.
The included web browser.
No, nothing for Dream
When
Passport.
I was a kid, I used to just go into the used game store, pick any game that looked cool. Didn't really know anything about it. The box art looks cool. I'd probably pick it up if I had the money. And I picked up JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, despite not knowing what
Ooh.
JoJo was or
Mm.
what a Bizarre Adventure was. And eventually, I sold it for Finding Nemo on the PlayStation 2, which was a
Oh,
big,
no.
big mistake because that game's worth like £400 nowadays.
Oh no,
I have very
John.
vivid memories of JoJo, and I used to love playing it. And now I'm learning it's like a hidden classic, and that wasn't in the
Yeah.
top 50, was it?
Oh,
It wasn't, because it was number technically 52.
It's a Capcom game.
Yeah, it
Yep.
just missed it. Again, Tony Hawk and Mach and X tied at 50, so technically it's 52.
Yeah.
But it almost hit it. You know what the crazy thing is? Virtua Fighter 3 TB also missed out the top 50.
I don't really like Virtua Fighter 3.
Mm-hmm. That
Yeah,
one
it-
is at 55.
I had so many opportunities to buy that game, and it came with. I remember they bundled it with like a preview disc for Shenmue, and that was the thing that almost got me to buy it. And I was like, I don't want to play Virtua Fighter though. I didn't pick it up back
Virtua
then.
Fighter 2 I love. 3 just always feels a little bit... there's something clunkier about it. It looks pretty nice, but I don't know. I don't like it as much as 2.
Interesting.
Yeah, two is fantastic. I played the hell out of 2 on the Saturn. It was actually the game we got when my parents bought themselves the Saturn. that was like their solution for the fact that my brother and I would fight over consoles. I remember we woke up Christmas Day, there was a package from Santa under the tree, which they were really stretching because I was like 13. And it was to themselves. And like at that point we knew, we were like, but you guys are jerks is what you are.
Just manipulative liars.
Yep, all of you. I saw earlier somebody asked about what was it? I'm missing what El Dorado, which was a 7-part Capcom RPG apparently.
Oh.
El Dorado Gate. It got 4 points.
Well,
So-
it seems like the deserving stuff got voted for at the very least. It's nice to see all this recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to remember with the Dreamcast, is in the West, we had it for a year and a half. And the amount that it accomplished with that library in that time is unprecedented. Like, you look at today, like when the PS5 and Series X launched, it took them quite a while to get games that were really distinctive to themselves. If Dreamcast just got like Resident Evil 2 and Soul Reaver and all that in its time, it'd be whatever. But it got all these games that today you think Dreamcast when you think of them. And you can't say that about modern consoles. They don't achieve this amount in that time.
Not at all. And as Shawshock points out, Capcom was, man, you were eating good if you were a Capcom fan on the Dreamcast.
Yeah,
Yes, you were.
absolutely.
But yeah, that is our top 10. Very curious what everybody's going to think about this this lineup. What won? I know that the usual anti-Sonic Brigade is going to be upset, but again, this is the last, kind of his last hurrah.
I don't know. The GameCube's got a chance with Adventure 2 Battle, I feel.
Oh God, Sonic!
Yeah.
Sonic could do well on GameCube.
I think Sonic will do well on GameCube. Adventure 2 Battle was a lot of fun. But the GameCube has so many amazing first-party games that Sonic is going to have to contend with. So
Yeah.
I don't think that I would be shocked, and I can't wait to see the episode, but I'd be shocked if Sonic Adventure 2 ended up in the top 3.
I'd be
Maybe
shocked.
even in the top 5.
Yeah.
It does. It also has Sonic Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog. So
With the Wii, Sonic Colors is a good game, but I feel like we are not exploring the Wii's library if we put it in the top 10. There are so many better games.
fair. It's gonna be. I gotta say, we're getting very close to the point of like all killer, no filler with the remaining consoles that we have, where people are very familiar with what we have coming up. However, next week we'll be covering 90s Windows games. We had DOS. Now we have Windows exclusive stuff. So think Half-Life and the like, your later Command Conquerors and all that stuff. So this is for the Windows platform or the Windows, OS. So I'll be curious what makes the top of that top one.
I'm jealous I can't be here for that as GVG's resident old person.
I mean, if you want to be, you can, Steve. Like it's open, but if it's I don't know your schedule.
No, I'll be on the East Coast, unfortunately. Well, not
Ah.
unfortunately. I'm visiting my father-in-law, so like I'm gonna have fun. I'll be
Unfortunately.
in your neck of
Oh
the
yeah,
woods.
it's like, how dare?
But that is what I grew up with. Like my dad had a PC in our living room because again back then you just had a family computer,
Yeah.
and I played so many crazy games like King's Quest 7 and I played Leisure Suit Larry, which got me in trouble. I had a lot of fun on the PC back then. Diablo 1 and 2.
My dad used
Yeah.
to call The Sims a virus because he thought The Sims made the computer slower. So like, uninstall this virus. We can't have this virus on the computer.
That's
Who is
amazing.
this Sid Meier?
I'm actually very
wait,
curious
Recent
which is gonna top 90s Windows. There's a lot of potential in there.
Yeah. There's a ton.
So, no, yeah. But that's for next time. For now, that covers it for our top 10 Dreamcast games of all time. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/gbgaming. But even just subscribing to the channel and ringing that bell helps us a ton. So until next time, bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.